All right, today we're going to dive into this really ancient text to solve a puzzle that is just fascinating. We're talking sacred bread, some of the most brilliant minds in history, and a single clue, a clue that seems to say two completely opposite things at the same time.
You know, you see this all the time today, right? In politics, on social media, but this isn't a new problem. This is a question that super brilliant minds have wrestled with for centuries. And the answer, at least in this case, unfolds like a real-deal detective story.
So the whole mystery, it all centers on this, the holy showbread. Think of it as a sacred offering with super specific rules. But the big question was, how and where was this stuff actually made? And believe me, the answer was not simple at all.
All right, let's get into it. Our case file opens with what seems like a simple disagreement, but it's actually crucial, and it's between two of the greatest sages of their time.
So, in one corner, you've got Rabbi Yehuda. He's adamant. He says all the prep, especially the baking, has to happen inside the sacred temple courtyard. No exceptions. But then, in the other corner, you have Rabbi Shimon. And he's like, nope, baking it outside the temple walls? Totally fine.
Okay, now here's where it gets really interesting. They weren't just, throwing out their opinions. No way. Both of these guys built their entire legal argument from the exact same biblical verse. Let that sink in. One sentence leads to two completely opposite rulings.
How is that even possible?
So let's look at the central piece of evidence, Exhibit A, and see how this whole thing builds. Our clue comes from the story of a young King David who's on the run for his life and just desperate for some food.
So here it is. This is the clue. A starving King David shows up at the Holy Tabernacle and begs the priest for bread. Problem is, the priest only has the sacred showbread. So, to try and convince him, David says this very cryptic line. And this one sentence is what becomes the foundation for both arguments.
Okay, so how on earth do you get two totally different rules from one sentence? Well, it all comes down to what each rabbi imagined David was actually seeing when he said those words. All right, let's put on our detective hats and look at this through the eyes of Rabbi Yehuda. He reads this verse and he builds this really powerful theory, but it all hinges on one single assumption about the scene. So Rabbi Yehuda pictures this. David shows up on a weekday and he sees the priests baking. He thinks David is scolding them, saying something like, hey, this is a non-sacred way to do things. You're baking on a weekday. So for Rabbi Yehuda, when the verse says consecrated in the vessel, he thinks the vessel is the oven. That means the baking itself is the sacred act, and that's why it has to be done inside the temple. But then, Rabbi Shimon looks at the exact same clue. He just changes that one little assumption about what's happening, and boom, he gets a completely different conclusion. Rabbi Shimon imagines the complete opposite scenario. He says, no, David arrives on the Sabbath and sees them baking. So he reads David's words as the reverse critique. Whoa, why are you baking on the Sabbath? They should be done in a non-sacred way, back on a weekday. So for him, consecrated in the vessel isn't the oven. The vessel is the golden table where the bread is placed. This means the baking itself isn't the sacred part. Placing it on the table is. And if that's the case, well, you can bake it anywhere you want. So there you have it. Two brilliant theories, both totally logical, both derived from the same exact text, just with different starting points. It feels like an unsolvable puzzle, right? A total deadlock. But then, the narrator of our text, who's kind of like the lead detective in this whole story, throws in a massive plot twist. The narrator basically asks a bombshell question, one that challenges the very foundation of both of those elaborate theories. And here's the aha moment. The text points out that a verse, just one line later, clarifies exactly what bread David got. It says he was given the showbread that was taken from before the Lord. That means he got the old bread, the stuff that had just been taken off the table to make room for the new loaves.
And this is the kicker. If David got last week's bread, then he never saw them baking at all. Not on a weekday, not on the Sabbath, not ever. The entire premise of both arguments just evaporates. They're both impossible. Neither theory can be right.
So what in the world is going on here, right? If both theories are totally impossible, why do we just go through all that? Well, it's because the text is revealing something deeper. The argument was never really about interpreting what King David said.
It turns out David wasn't critiquing anyone's baking schedule. Not at all. He was making a really clever legal argument for why it was okay for him, a non-priest, to eat this holy bread. He was in a life-or-death situation. When he said non-sacred manner, he meant the old bread was no longer fully sacred. And the part about being consecrated in the vessel, that was him saying, look, my life's in danger, so it would be permitted for me to eat this.
And that brings us to the real heart of the issue. That whole detective story trying to figure out what David meant, it was all a smokescreen. The real disagreement between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon, it goes way deeper. It's much older and much more fundamental.
Yeah, their whole fight, the entire legal dispute, it all boils down to this one simple question. At what exact moment does ordinary flour and water become holy bread?
See, they disagreed because they each inherited a different ancient tradition. Rabbi Yehuda's tradition said the bread becomes holy in the oven. The sacredness is literally baked right in. But Rabbi Shimon's tradition said, no, the bread only becomes holy the moment it's placed on that sacred table.
And we actually have proof of this. The text itself points out that when Rabbi Shimon first states his opinion, he uses this specific phrase, one should be accustomed to say. Now that might sound odd to us, but that is classic rabbinic language for when you're quoting an old oral tradition that's been passed down, not something you just figured out from a verse.
So that whole detective story about King David, it was basically an attempt, probably by later generations, to find a hook in the Bible, an anchor, for a much older disagreement that was really just based on tradition. They weren't inventing the law from the text, they were using the text to try and justify the law they already had. And all of this leaves us with a final thought, one that goes way beyond ancient baking rules. What's more powerful? What truly forms the bedrock of law, of ritual, of belief? Is it the written word, something that's always open to clever new interpretations? Or is it that unwritten chain of tradition, passed down quietly from teacher to student, from one generation to the next?